How are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, I'm well, thank you. I love that you're early. I thought I'd like pip everybody just to manage my
No, I had it all written down on a piece of paper, so I was like, if I don't do it now, I'll forget all the details.
Yeah, I like to get places early, limit my stress, get there, be calm, be ready. So I'm going to take a last puff of my spliffy. And then
Nice.
I'm going to just do the intro stuff, just so that those who've heard it before, don't have to hear it again. But I do like to repeat it in each video, just for those people who are watching for the first time. They can, get that little intro bit. So I like to just fit that in quickly before everyone joins. And I don't know what the Zoom etiquette is as far as like meetings. In real life like this, we like to get to meetings a little early, so they can start at the time. But I don't know, how the Zoom etiquette is. So I kind of just assume people come on at 6:30. We've got a little time to mess around with. And also tonight, we don't have time limits. So
oh, really?
Yes. So a friend graciously allowed me to use their account. And yeah, so we have unlimited time. However, I don't really want to hear myself waffle on for longer than an hour.
No, that makes perfect sense.
But I would like to allow some question time from last week, because we didn't even cover the hydration aspect. Do you read the blogs?
No, because I was saying to Ange, I was like, I can't find the blog. And then I followed you on Instagram, and I just haven't got around to it because I'm working night shifts at the moment. So my whole days and nights just get very confused.
Yeah, crazy. Sure.
But it's going to settle. So then I will, definitely.
No, just because I only talk about half of what's in the actual blog. We'd be here for 3 hours if I said everything. So I kind of just touch on the things that I think are important and that are relevant to what I do. But then the blogs have quite a lot of biology detail. They've got diagrams. They've got the links, so they're quite nice to go to fill the gaps and get the whole story. Yeah, I just give a synopsis. So let me do the intro, if you'll bear with me.
Okay, I'm going to mute myself.
Sure. Thank you very much for joining again this evening.
Cool. It's always a pleasure.
I appreciate your time and attention. So this is our third of the four-part series, addressing, really it's about the fundamentals of well-being is the overall umbrella concept of these series of wellness talks. And what I did is I started with the compass to wellness. Which is 4 primary important aspects or cornerstones to the temple, which is your state of being, body, mind, and spirit, because we always look at all 3 in totality, and because the body as a vessel expresses what's going on the mental and spiritual planes. So when you do something on one capacity or one level, it will impact the others. So you've got to be aware of what and how and why you're doing whatever you're doing. So this part tonight is on movement, and I will go into that in detail when we start the meeting, when more people have joined. I'm just filling in the gap while I wait. I always start a little early, just to get on and do this intro for people, so that those who don't want to hear it all over again, they don't have to. And then as soon as everyone's on, we can get going. So I always like to start off by saying thank you to everyone who took the time to join in. I really appreciate it. And I know that some of you, many people communicate and they want to join in, but they're unable to for whatever very valid reason. But so these videos are recorded and they are available both on my YouTube video, and I make them available on the blog, which is already live for those who are able to use that on the side as some follow along notes. The diagrams are there, the links are there. And then Monday, I add the link to the video. So those that missed the video are able to watch it there. Or if you want to recap on anything, then again, the video will be live probably about Monday. So I talked about how Nikki B Wellness and approach to healing is about a body, mind, and spirit approach. The other thing that I think is really important, and I always mention, is the quality and quantity aspect. Those are kind of your sums of the parts that you have to add into any wellness equation. Excuse me. Thank you. Let me see. So I did say last week that I would do some giveaways, and I didn't get around to it. In my little bit of chaos, I kind of forgot. So what I'd like to do is start off tonight by kind of addressing that. And Riri, you girl, you win a wellness session with Nikki B. Whoop, whoop. I know it was on your wish list. So blessings to you. Thank you for your support. It's my gift back to you. So I look forward to doing that. So we'll be in comms privately to talk about when to set that up for. And you know, if you prefer to have, you can choose really whether you want a wellness consult, so we identify and address your health concerns or issues, or whether you prefer something like a distance healing, where we do a kind of guided meditation session where I take you through a self-guided, I'll guide you through you doing Reiki on yourself. So you can let me know, give it a think, what do you need more? And yeah, my gift to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So there we go. That's one of them. And then I have got another one that I wrote down the participants' names from last week. And one of them has won a gift too. And I will be in contact with them privately. And you can all see who the lucky person is next week. So yeah, those are the giveaways that I neglected to follow through with last week. And I think that covers pretty much. So I want to always, just let's recap quickly last week. Last week was part 2. And in that we looked at sustenance. Sustenance is about nutrition and about hydration. And unfortunately, I only had 40 minutes last week, so it was such a rushed, chaotic talk, and I didn't even get around to the hydration. So the blog is available, and all the notes for that I would have talked about are in that blog. So please go ahead and look at that. But if anyone has any questions about anything I didn't cover last week that's in the blog, please don't hesitate to get in fact, anytime. If we don't get around to it in the talks, if you have questions, please feel free to DM me. I'm always happy to care and do what I can to help you towards a better state of health and well-being. So I wanted to allow question time, but I don't think that's necessary. So you can just do it via other means, as in email or DM or whatever your preferred method is. So let's crack on. Today's talk is on movement. So movement is the third most important aspect of well-being, because first of all, week 1 we covered breathing. You can't live without breathing. You can't live more than a few minutes without breathing. So that is why that is number 1. And it's also easy and it's free. And there are a lot of ways to use it and manipulate it so that we can really benefit from it. Week 2 was, as I said, sustenance, nutrition, and hydration. That's really important because we need energy to move, and we need fuel to recover and restore. So now that we've had our food, so we took the breath of life, we took a gulp of milk from the mother's breast, and now we need to start growing and to live, to expand our horizons. Our brains are starting to kick in, and we are starting to explore the world. So the movement is about that. Movement is about, well, we need to move. So food and movement are kind of swappy around, but remember I said to you, you can only live without food for so long and water for so long. you can sit forever, but unless you actually move, you're not going to find those resources. So the two work hand in hand. And so we need to move in order to source food. We need to move in order to avoid injury. And we need to move in order to reproduce. So that's pretty kinky and exciting. For just by the way, you know, in the wellness works, I do have a nursing background. So I don't really have any bars or boundaries for whatever diseases or discomforts you have. I'm not very easily embarrassed. Talk about anything, anytime, anywhere. So really, if you have issues with regards to anything, depression, anxiety, addictions, you shit too much, you shit too little, whatever they are, you know, body, mind, and spirit, bring them on. I've been doing this for a very, very long time. I have a lot of skills, tools, resources, and what I can't deal with, I know the right people to plug in and help fulfill your journey or give you the stepping stones you need on your journey to get to where you need to get to. So please don't ever be too embarrassed to talk to me about anything, or if you have issues, you know, that you don't feel you can talk to people outside in your own world, please reach out. I'm always happy to help and go there. So those are the three reasons we need to move. Really, what we need to move is your musculoskeletal system. So essentially, that is your skeleton, which is your bones. You've got 207 bones in the body. Some are quite large, some are very teeny tiny. I think the smallest bone in your body is the one in your ear. I'm thumb sucking that from memory, so I stand corrected. But you know, they get from that small to as big as your thigh bone. Yeah, that forms your skeleton, right? So that's the hard framework of your body. Then what you need are some muscles or some soft tissue. Just by the way, bone is also soft tissue. Even though it's hard, it is actually soft. And I'll explain if I can remember. Please don't hesitate to prompt me if I forget. You can have bone issues because of how we use our bodies, because it's a soft tissue. So we'll get back to that. But supporting your skeletal structure is your muscular structure. That's actually not just muscles. That is also fascia, and it's also tendons. So that kind of keeps everything together, and it keeps it a little more flexible. Right. So there are three types of muscles. There is smooth muscle. So, for example, that would be brain dead, your digestive system. So, like, if you think about it, when your stomach, your gut actually has like this natural squeezing action. That's how it pushes the bulk down. That's peristaltic movement. That's involuntary. So smooth muscle is always involuntary. That's part of your unconscious functioning. Your body does it. You don't have to think about it. It needs to happen. The other example of smooth muscle tissue that is again, all smooth muscle is involuntary. So the other one that's important, for example, is if you take your vascular system. So your blood is pumped through your circulatory system, and your blood vessels, they need a certain resistance against what's going on, against the flow. So that's kind of your blood pressure. So that is controlled by a series of chemical reactions, but ultimately the brain says, for those who joined or have watched or know what happened in the first talk on breathing, we talked about, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Can anyone prompt me, Ree? What did it have to do with this? Anyway, let me go back to this, and if it comes back, then I'll go there. But basically what happens is you need some tension in your vein. Otherwise, imagine the blood would just push through and that would just like be baggy. It wouldn't go anywhere. So the veins have to create a resistance. Oh, I was going to talk about the limbic system. Thank you. So the limbic system, remember, was that your lower brain thinking. That's where all your automatic stuff happens that your body needs, that you don't think about. So it's really your fight or flight state of being, which is a form of protection against injury. So when that happens, it actually, your blood pressure goes up because there's more resistance in the veins, there's more blood pumping through, but even though the vessels are relaxed, the force of the blood going through, because of the pumping, the faster pumping action of the heart to get the blood to the muscles in order to be able to run or fight. And so that is an example of smooth muscle, is that vascular resistance. So it's just a little note there. So it goes to show again how breathing and staying in control of your state of tension, so your response to stress, is so important, because it actually, we see how it has an effect on how the body works in so many ways. Then the second type of muscle we have is cardiac muscle. So that's very unique to the heart. It has this, it has a Mexican way, kind of way of operating. So it has its own little nerve, its own little pacemaker, and that sparks a trigger, and that tends to filter through, causing that pumping action. And that is also an involuntary muscle. You don't need to think about your heart beating, it just happens. Then really in movement, I think where I'm relevant and what I think we would be more interested in focusing on is actually the skeletal muscle. That is both, well, mainly a voluntary muscle, but also an involuntary muscle. Like I said, when we need to protect ourselves, we go into a fight or flight state of being. It's a physiological reaction, and there's a cascade event of chemical reactions that go on in the body without us thinking about, that allow our bodies to either escape the trauma, resist it, or pretend we don't exist so that it will bypass us. And the skeletal muscle, so it's like I said, mostly voluntary. So we can say, you know, in some ways we quite, it's, even though it's voluntary, we often think quite unconsciously. Like you may look in a direction and you have unconsciously thought to yourself, I need to move in that direction. And you start going there, but you haven't really thought, I'm going to put one foot in front of the other. All you had to do was project your thought about the direction you wanted to move in, and your body responded in kind and led you there. And it did so, hopefully for most of us, without falling over our own 2 feet, which does sometimes happen. So when you find yourself doing that, it's probably time to stop and take a few nice deep breaths to oxygenate the brain and the muscles. And also probably a good time to have a little snack and or some water. Just again, to oxygenate the blood, to hydrate it, to just freshen it up. Because we can get clumsy when in our movements when we have a depletion of the previous 3. So muscle essentially helps us maintain our posture. It helps us with our balance, which is why learning to develop our muscular system in a very balanced manner is so important. And then it also allows us to move the skeleton with fluidity instead of a click-clacking skeleton story going on. Then the other part of this musculoskeletal system that's really important is joints. So we have, you know, your joints are what allow the aspect of when bone meets bone, it allows them to rotate and move around each other. We get different joints, and really what's most important to me about joints is to remember to train and maintain your range of motion. So I think I'm going to go back to that a little later. for now, I just want to talk about, you know, the body has a beautiful way of operating, but you also have to treat it well, because if you don't, you have a use it or lose it ability. The more you use it, the more you challenge it, the more you test it to see what it can do. It won't do anything. In fact, it will regress. It will do less. I often talk about, when I'm talking about these things, I give examples of the elderly. And I kind of do that to make people aware, which is always, if that's the spirit part, that's the conscious awareness part, is, you know, nobody really likes to think about getting old. And I noticed with Corona, people have real denial issues about death and dying. And if anyone has issues and want to go talk about that, happy to deal with that too. When I was in my final year of nursing, I did my final ward prac exam as a sister in oncology. So I'm very comfortable with death and dying, and very happy to address that with those who are not and wish to become more comfortable. But again, like I always say, my personal reasons for maintaining my health and wellness is because up until my dying day, I'd really like to be able to feed myself and wipe my own ass. That's, I kind of like, yeah, don't want other people doing that shit for me. Thanks very much. So I like to show you examples of what goes wrong in the elderly, and you know these things. But I like to match them up for you so you can understand that if you don't project yourself forward and don't start to concern yourself now, these are the issues that you will, excuse me, potentially have to deal with at a later stage. So when in breathing, it was about how the elderly are more susceptible to pneumonia. And if you want to know about that, go and watch that video. In eating, if we don't eat nourished foods and stay hydrated, we get all kinds of bone issues. We can even get malnutrition, and often actually a lot of confusion in the elderly is an electrolyte imbalance. So, you know, they're very simple things that go on that are actually quite dangerous when you're an older person. And then with regards to movement, the use it or lose it, if you think about it, the how many elderly people break their hip? Well, they've lost their muscular strength, so the actual structural support is weakened. The bones become softened and more porous, so they break a lot easily. Exercise. So let me quickly skip back to the skeleton and about bone. So what happens is, as we're growing, bone cells, I'm going to keep this very simple. The biology is in the blog. But bone cells stack together, right? And they add on to lengthen. Up until a certain point, the bone stops growing lengthwise. But what happens is, when pressure is placed on the bone from the external, the center part senses that and wants to create a stronger resistance. So what it does is it starts to build more cells. And so what you can do is actually strengthen bone. And weight-bearing exercises are really good for strengthening bone, particularly so I'm almost 50, and I'm really concerned about, I'm perimenopausal, so I'm aware that perhaps I'm going to start losing bone density, except I'm hoping that I've covered that with the nutrition and the hydration for myself, in keeping them strong. And I want to address a little bit of the appropriate nutrient needs regarding the bones in a moment. But, you know, you need to start thinking ahead, and prevention is better than cure. It saves time, it saves money, it saves energy. It's a lot more, it's a happier state of being than being in an unwell state. So just do the few things that are necessary. Again, I always say it's the compound effect of the total effort you put in. And if you just keep doing the right things, you can, if you 80% of the time do the right thing, you can do absolutely what you want the other 20% of the time, and it's okay, and you can get away with it fairly safely. So Just do the right things. So bone you can strengthen with exercise. So it's really important to do some form of weight bearing exercises as you get older. Don't stop, because when you stop, you're going to start losing the benefits. So let's quickly look at the nutrition or the nutrients that are required for bone health, just very quickly. So essentially you need vitamin A, and that promotes bone cell activity. You need vitamin C. Well, I kind of think vitamin C is one of my top 3 supplements. If I recommend anything, that would be something extra. Look, if you're eating right, you are getting some vitamin C. But I think the amounts of stress that we're under these days, and if you think about it, the substances we eat and drink, for example, coffee, the foods we eat, the medicines we take, the amount of effort we put into movement, not always constructive, but just the running around crazy ass stuff. Mind the language. That vitamin C, I think, is one that's often seriously depleted. And have a look at Dr. Linus Pauling. He did a lot of research on it, and I'm afraid vitamin C therapy doesn't get nearly as much attention and credit as I believe is due. In functional medicine practices, it's one of the few things that they do as part of your holistic treatment. They give you huge doses of vitamin C. So let me give you a comparison. If you look on your average vitamin C packaging, it will be anywhere. I think the highest dose I've seen in a capsule is probably a 1,500 milligram, and that's often combined with rosehip. But generally, it will come in gradients of grammage less than that. And you can, in an ascorbic acid form, which is vitamin C, you can take high doses as much as you want. It's a water-soluble vitamin, so whatever your body doesn't use, it will get rid of. It will lose it. So it's quite safe to take in high doses, except it is very acidic, so it is very aggravating for the gut. So there are kind of 2 options around that. Well, 3 really. Option number 1 is to get a buffered vitamin C. That means that the acidity has been removed, so it's a lot gentler on your digestive system. Number 2, there are plant versions. Can't remember what they. Ester Cs. I always joke. I always say, "Do you want some ecstasy?" Meaning the ester Cs. ESTERC. And they are like your rose hips and those kind of. So you can actually take quite high doses of those before you start to feel any irritations. But here's the thing, if you want to increase, same with fats. I don't know if I mentioned it last week, when you're introducing fats into your diet. And remember I said with banting, often one of the issues people have is because they hit the fat so fast, they often have gallbladder issues. And I know a lot of people who've had their gallbladders removed within 6 months of starting a banting or a high fat diet. So in the same way that you introduce your fats slowly and incrementally increase them, so too you can do with vitamin C. I've managed to get up to about 8 grams a day. That's a lot. I'm trying to think of a way to. So those 1,500 milligrams, it's like a whole heap of those, and they're big ass. But I drink it in powder form. And what I do is I start slowly with like 500 milligrams, and I build that up slowly to a gram over like 2 weeks. And then after that, I can jump up quite fast up until a point. But you'll feel it. It is irritating. So stop when you start, because it will aggravate things like hemorrhoids and irritable bowel issues. So you really do need to be careful. Oh, I'm just remembering. you know, with supplements these days, you know, I haven't really got my finger on the pulse as much because I'm not being able to go into health stores, and I go into health stores like people go into bookstores. I like to read the labels and check out what's new. I think it's fun. So there is actually liposomal vitamin C. And so you also find magnesium, beautiful format to take that into. And there is something else, but I can't remember what it is now. But anyway, what they do is they take the vitamin C and they put it in a fat molecule. And remember how I said last week that fats aren't really digested in the stomach. They're only digested once they leave the stomach, and it combines with the bile that breaks it down into its smaller fat chains, triglycerides. When they put the vitamin C molecule in the liposomal, the fat molecule, what happens is it actually makes it past the stomach, and it only gets broken down once it gets into the actual intestines. So what's nice about that is it's not as irritating, and again, you can take higher doses and it's still quite comfortable. Anytime anyone wants to talk about how to take it for themselves with regards to limitations to any conditions you have, because if you have an inflammatory condition, especially of the gut, we need to treat that first before we start adding in the vitamin C. Excuse me. So there are ways and means of doing things if you know how. Okay, so we were talking about, yes, vitamin C, it's important in the body, and especially bones, skin, hair, nails, because of the collagen synthesis. And as we get older, you will see, you know, how the skin gets wrinkly and, you know, all these lines. You can kind of do natural Botox by taking more vitamin C. Let me quickly add this in as a note, health shop shopping. When it comes to collagen, we hear a lot these days, there's been a lot of marketing and more products, collagen products. Collagen is mainly sourced from animals, from, you know, the gelatinousy bits, the bits around the bones, the joints and the bones. All the sticky bits, like your oxtail, for those who know. So collagen, you can buy it and you can supplement it, and we hear all the time, we kind of feel like, oh, that sounds like a good idea, you know, less wrinkles, less Botox. Here's the thing, the body automatically produces collagen. Yes, as we get older, our capacity to produce collagen drops, which is why we have these issues. On top of the fact that we've had so many more years of oxidative stress going on in the cells. So I kind of feel like instead of taking collagen, which are often animal-based products, and you know, if we're thinking consciously, I just would like to quickly tap into the spirit aspect of food. I didn't really get there last week, but I've never really, I've thought about it a lot. You know, people have often asked me, are you a vegetarian? No, I eat food, whatever. But personally, I eat an 80% plant-based diet. I like plants. I just find they work better for me. But I've never really been adverse to eating animals. But it's come into my consciousness recently that if that creature that I'm eating also has a skeleton and a muscular structure and a circulatory system, am I not being a cannibal to be eating something that is I'm an animal. So who am I to differentiate between eating you or that four-legged creature? So I'm just saying, like, I just would like people to think, you know, you decide what you want to do. It's your journey, but I like to just put questions out there and make people think a little bit. It's my challenging aspect. You can get marine-based collagens. Okay, so yes, you can get collagen. Yes, you can supplement. However, I'm not entirely sure it is necessary. If you'd get the right amount of vitamin C in. You also need a little bit of copper to synthesize, but we can do that as a side individual for those whose individual concern that is. But I kind of feel like if we just take more vitamin C, not only will we have more collagen synthesis, but just generally you will restore and heal better. I think it's a very vital vitamin. If you remember the scurvy history we learned at school. So, and then the other mineral we need for bone health, as you probably commonly know, is vitamin D. Vitamin D, yes, it's something the skin converts. There's something within the skin that converts UV light, so sunlight, to vitamin D, which our body then uses in various ways. It's also one of your fat soluble vitamins. So here are some notes about supplementing with vitamin D. Number one, I don't believe anybody should be supplementing with vitamin D without getting baseline blood levels checked first. And I'm happy to consult with you to let you know what at what point, what do your levels need to be at that are actually healthy, and what do they need to be at to improve them, and what the correct dosage is for where your levels are at. Because they usually come in 3 different dosages, 1, 2, and 3,000 milligrams. 3,000 milligrams is, it's actually not even milligrams, it's international units. It's like micro dosages. And 3,000 milligrams is generally the highest dose you can buy over the counter. But you need to know what to take because it's a fat-soluble vitamin, A, D, E, and K. So what that means is, in the same way I talked about the liposomal vitamin C, when your body's detoxification system, the liver, is unable to process everything safely, your body will store those toxic chemicals in a fat cell and lump them on your thighs, gut, wherever you store your fat. Or even for those of you who can't see, the internal fat, so the fat that surrounds all the organs, that's actually there to protect, like the bumper factor, the cushioning factor for the organs. It will just dump them there until the body's given a chance to burn them, in which case you will then detox those chemicals. So your A, D, E, and K are all those depositable elements, so you do need to be careful with them and not play around. So with vitamin D, again, always do your baseline blood checks first. Then we determine what level you need to be at. And after that, I would do a base level check every 6 months to see, we'll monitor it, because you shouldn't necessarily need to be on it all the time. I don't really believe, other than my top 3, I wouldn't really say you need to be on any supplement permanently. You use plant medicines and your supplements as plugins, as supports around your basic core nutritional program. That's where you're going to get most of your beneficial nutrients, and they're all bioharmonic with the body. So your body loves those natural nutrients through food more than it does through any other way. And remember, anytime you pop a pill, it has to pass the digestive system. So oftentimes popping a pill is not the most effective way. For example, with vitamin D, other than taking a pill, you can also, one of the ways I love to take it or use it, in fact, it's probably my preferred way, is you get transdermal patches. And these are also available, by the way, for B12. So those who are super stressed and need an extra chill pill, you can get this, and also in a spray, by the way. I love where things are going these days and all the options. We don't have to take 22 pills anymore. We can actually mix it up so that it's more manageable to mix things up and blend it all together in a way that's convenient and easy for you. I don't think health should be hard. It should be fun. You know what? Here's the real deal. A good well-being is sex, drugs, and rock and roll, baby. That's where we're at here. But we must be serious, and this is the body, mind, and spirit conscious. I'm not talking about harming oneself. We do these things because they are good for us and we're benefiting, and we're going to we're going to wipe our asses till the day we drop. So vitamin D, so those transdermal patches, you pop them on like either behind your ear, anywhere where there's the skin is thin and there is vasculature going on underneath. It's a beautiful way to take it. And then, like I said, you can also get mouth sprays. So those are the ways to take vitamin D. Get your blood checked every 6 months and reassess your levels. People in Southern Hemisphere often think because we think we're exposed to so much sun that we're getting enough. Actually, most people tend to be deficient in vitamin C. So as one of your baseline blood checks, it is something I would add in there just to see, because it is kind of an easy fix. And it makes a big difference for people who are struggling with weight loss, depression. It can often be a small nutritional deficiency that we have that can make all the world of difference and add quality and functionality to your life. So vitamin D. So mineral wise, your bones need a lot of minerals, but you often hear calcium. So I want to dispel a myth too, or I'm going to do a Nikki Bism. And I've realized these days I'm actually going to be challenging. I'm going to say I've been doing this for 25 some years, from nursing all the way through in different formats, different platforms, different countries, different people, different products, different experiences. And this is kind of my sum total. And I've learned some things that have seemed to be consistent throughout the time. And I've decided I'm going to keep quiet against the norm and what we hear, and actually start to tell my experience. So, because, it might be your experience. So if there's something for you to take away, then that would be really beautiful. And I noticed that many South Africans, well, I'm in South Africa, but worldwide, we're told to take calcium because, well, marketing tells us to take calcium because it will make your bones stronger. You're getting older, you need to take calcium. And magnesium. Oh, well, let me go there. For restless leg syndrome too, we're told to take calcium. I'm going to disagree. Again, like the vitamin C and collagen thing, I'm not always convinced we need to take the one, like both. I think taking the one will be enough. With the calcium thing, I think we actually get enough of that in our diets. What we're more depleted in is magnesium. And with the high stress, again, magnesium influence. If you drink a lot of coffee, if you are stressed, and a lot of people are in denial of their actual stress levels. So we need to also start getting real with ourselves about how superpowered we are. You are a super awesome, powerful person, but you have human capabilities and limitations. So like stay within what's healthy for you. So many of us are overstressed. Some of us take medications that influence calcium, magnesium absorption, and getting older, etc., whatever the reason is. There are many reasons that deplete magnesium. So I kind of feel like it's more important to, like vitamin C, rather take magnesium first for a period of up to 3 months before you consider adding in a calcium. Again, if you're eating a high plant-based diet, your green leafy vegetables are high calcium. So, again, that plugs in well and works together. Often we just need to rev up the magnesium levels because we can't get enough in through our diet. And that's, again, another reason only why I would use supplementation, is because, like I said with the omega-3s last week, in some instances it's so difficult to get the right quantities of the right nutrient in through your natural or through your consumption. So that's when supplementing gives the helping hand, and that's when you would supplement. So adding in some magnesium is very valuable. You should be taking magnesium preferably at night. Look at taking it about an hour before bed, because if you're highly stressed and your cortisol levels from the stress, the physiological stress response, those will be revving you still. So magnesium binds with whatever chemicals, and that calms the whole response down. So by the time you actually go to bed and want to go to sleep, your body will have started calming down enough as far as your stimulating steroid hormones from the stress response. And it will allow melatonin to kick in. Melatonin is released from your pineal gland, which, by the way, is the same place DMT is released from, and your body naturally produces very small amounts of DMT. As you get older, the pineal gland shrinks, plus you will hear, if you are anywhat of a conspiracy theorist, you may have heard how fluoride in our water, which is put in as standard, and if you watch, they'll say it is because of it was a economical way for manufacturing to get rid of one of their bio-waste products. They sold it to us as, so that's just one of the conspiracy theories. Think about it. I don't know. Check it out. Make up your own mind. But we're told we need fluoride, and the conscious tell us that fluoride calcifies the pineal gland. So you are limiting your own natural psychedelic experience of life. But that's okay, because there are others that we can use. And again, I'm all about plant medicines, and psychedelics have been around for a very long time. Cannabis, you know, one of the things I'm kind of going to, a lot of people are doing it, but I'm going to stand up for myself. I've been a stoner for about 30 years, and I would like to dispel the myth about stoners. I lead a very active life. I'm very functional, and I'm after 30 years of using this drug, I'm smarter than a lot of people I know. So I mean to toot my own horn, but to prove a point, you know, you can be a stoner and highly efficient and effective person. And so for me, it's always been a medicine that I've used to help me manage anxiety and keep me calm. Being high doesn't work for everybody. I get it, you know. However, these plant medicines are available in other forms, you know. These days, in fact, since they've started legalizing, hallelujah, I did not think in my lifetime that I would legally be able to purchase, grow, and use marijuana. So I'm very grateful for, at least in my lifetime, to have, free the plants. So plant medicines, there are different ways to take them. Some people do not like the feeling of being high. I can respect that, and let me advise you and guide you towards ways that will work for you. You know, we are all individuals. I will individualize or personalize programs for people. However, just like when you go to the doctor for your whatever meds and they have to play around to find the right dosage, so too would we. Let me also quickly talk about holistic healing. One of the things that's really important to know about it is, and I'm really going on here, but I need to watch. Oh no, I'm good still. Riri, will you time check me just now? If I lose track of time, will you time check me, please? Thank you. So plant medicines, yes. We would need to tweak and play around with whatever format, dosage, what have you, works with you. Also, how we stack things. We need to allow, holistic healing, that's where I was. So when it comes to healing and we're using natural means, also holistic healing, we're always looking at treating the cause, not just symptomatic. We want to get past symptoms. They are just a guide to teach us and show us how to treat. But really, we want to go right to the heart of whatever is causing your discomfort, your disease, and we want to trigger your innate ability to heal and then support the body in being able to restore itself. But what often happens is you get a Herxaminer response. And really what that means is that the body will first negate. So it almost will like take you to the furthest point of where you would have gone with this before it becomes disastrous for you. So it will push you to the edge of the nasty end of whatever it is you're already currently experiencing. But once it hits that bottom boundary, it will bounce back in the other direction. It's like putting fuel back in your car. You know, if you're on empty now, you'll actually drop to empty quite quickly. You notice how when you hit the red, that like a zoop, you know, whereas when it's on half, it's like takes forever. So if you use that as an idea, it explains it quite well. So, yeah, you will feel worse before you feel better. So I always ask people to be patient with yourself in your healing. There is a lesson to be learned from your dis-ease. What is your mind telling you? What is your spirit telling you through your body? Because remember, that's the expression of those aspects of your being. So going back to magnesium, there are, again, I prefer to supplement with magnesium first before I do anything else with regard to bone health, other than vitamin D and C. But magnesium, many ways to take it. For muscular aches and pains, you can spray it on. Transdermally, it absorbs very well. Transdermally means through the skin. And about 60% of what you put on the skin is transdermally infused into your bloodstream, into the cells. So your body absorbs what you put on it. So if you can't eat it, don't put it on your body. Okay, so I just wanted to mention something about calcium quickly, note to everyone. So we hear also about, part of what I'm doing is dispelling myths too. We hear a lot about alkalizing powders. Really all that is a calcium-based product. And what it does is, I might have mentioned it last week, like same as magnesium, it's one of the most essential mineral salts in the body. And what happens is when chemical reactions are going on and new bonds are formed and there are free floating compounds, your magnesium compounds and your calcium compounds bind with these free floating chemicals, and your body can then use them or lose them. So that's really what alkalizing powder is, just by the by. Used with very good effect in gout, which is just an inflammatory autoimmune, it's an autoimmune disorder caused by inflammation, generally aggravated and caused by stress. And then, well, caused by stress and then aggravated by things like red wine and meat. So protein rich and sulfate rich products. Also, let me quickly say this about the importance of calcium. So calcium is really essential in how muscles work, as in they are the chemical required to actually trigger muscle activity. So there are different proteins in the muscle, and when calcium gets involved, it creates an enzymatic process, and what that does is it forms the muscular action of the cells tightening, and that's the contraction part of the muscle. So just for interest. Oh, which brings me, I mentioned restless legs and how you're told to use calcium, but again, I think magnesium is a better, because think about it, restless legs would be a convulsive contraction of the legs. So doesn't it make sense? Well, it does to me, and please, anyone who knows better, feel free to discuss this. I love discussing things. But if calcium is causing the contraction, then surely what we want to do is cause a relaxation, which is exactly what magnesium does, which is why we take it at night, and which is why we take it with muscle spasms and muscular aches and pains. So if your legs are spasming because of restless legs, surely what one should do is add the magnesium to create the relaxation, the opposite. Anyway, so I just think, yeah, supplement with magnesium. If it doesn't work, you can add the calcium, but try it first. Then
Nikki,
hello.
excellent.
Hi, Linda.
Hi. I typed in the chat because I didn't want to disturb you. But yeah, I have restless leg and I take magnesium and it's spot on. I love your reasoning.
Perfect.
Just
thank you. Thank you for the feedback. That's so valuable.
Cool.
Thank you. Okay. Where are we? Okay, muscles. I talked about the different kinds. Okay, let's look at the functions of muscles quickly. I won't spend too long there. Really, there are three important aspects about muscles. So the one is muscle tone. Like I said, the body has a use it or lose it principle. The muscles have a similar principle, is in that it wants to use all its power and strength or none. So building the power and strength of your muscles enhances their ability. You know, you encouraging better functionality. So the importance also about having better muscle tone, which is where you have stronger muscle fibers, where you have more muscle fibers. So in the same way that bone builds strength because of the continued pressure on it, what happens with muscle? Muscle looks like this. You remember, it's kind of they are fibers that slide. So that would be relaxed, that would be contracted. And you have so many muscle fibers. And what happens is when there is a trauma to a muscle, so we can do that through exercise. I know we don't consciously think about it, but when you're muscle building, that pain you feel afterwards, that stiffness, that's because the muscle fibers tore. We exerted beyond their capability pressure. So look, they didn't all rip, because then you would have torn your muscle. But there are loads of cells within those muscles, in those fibers. There are cells that make up fibers, and then there are fibers that make up the muscle structure. So what happens is the cells or the microfibers get ripped apart. And what happens is in their restoration, they build more cells. So that's how muscle builds, that's how muscle grows. And the more they grow, obviously, the stronger they're going to be, both not only towards resistance, but also in the amount of effort they're able to apply. Yeah, and also muscle tone, the more you work it, the firmer it gets, so the more shapely it gets. So that's why people who work out regularly doing strength training kind of exercises have such good physique, other than the fact that their body fat percentage is often very low. So let's quickly talk about the fuel we need. Oh, no. So I'm going to stick with my 3 points. So we talked about tone. The other thing that's important when it comes to muscle is muscle fatigue. Muscle needs 2 things in order to function. It needs oxygen. So there we go back to the most important aspect, cornerstone to well-being or wellness is your breathing correctly, because breathing in oxygen creates that enzymatic reaction that enables biological life to occur. And then the other thing we need is fuel. And when it comes to muscle in particular, it likes glucose. So carbs, sugar, which is often stored there's actually a certain amount of glucose stored in its biological form not only in the liver, but for fight or flight scenarios, which is why we don't lose weight when we're constantly stressed, because we're burning up constantly the stored fuel supply in the liver and storing the excess fuel we're eating. Because in a fight or flight state, remember, the body is not focused on the digestive system or the pancreas or the spleen. It wants the brain to function, it needs the muscles to function so that you can protect yourself and escape injury we need fuel in order for the muscle to work. When you get to the instance where, so you have a certain amount of oxygen already stored or in usage, and a certain amount of fuel stored. When those are depleted, what will happen is the muscle will now go into a negative, a depleted state. So that's when you get muscle fatigue, when you actually can't do any more. You've fatigued your muscles. So that often leads to, that's the feeling of afterwards, when you kind of just feel like you've hit the wall a bit, because your whole system needs to be refueled. So the first thing you can do is really get your oxygen levels up by breathing well. And that's also going to help with not only replacing what needs to be replaced, but also it will help the restorative process, and it will support it better. And then, yeah, by the way, when we hit that depletion state, that's when we actually start burning the fat cells. But just by the way, so that's when we also, remember when we start burning fat cells, that's when we're also releasing those stored toxins. So it will also kind of explain, you know, if you haven't done exercise for a while and you suddenly do a whole, or if you haven't done activity for a while, if you haven't moved, you know, I just want to say at this point too, I hate the word exercise. I just like don't even want to do that stuff if you say the word exercise. I'm exhausted at the thought of exercising. I like the word movement. Movement is a way of being active that is pleasurable and fun for you. It should not stress your body. It should be a form of relaxation. It doesn't matter what form that comes from. Some people find running 1,000 kilometers is relaxing for them. Others prefer swimming. Others like to try and pick up 10 tons. Whatever it is for you, just match your preferred mode of activity to to what works for you, towards your well-being. Don't let it be destructive. It must contribute. It mustn't detract. So
sorry to disturb you, Nix. I don't know,
please.
but there's only like 2 minutes until 1:30, just so that
Okay,
you're aware.
perfect. So then we'll have done an hour. Is everyone, are you okay maybe to go a little over, like 15 minutes?
Yeah, that's fine by me.
Linda?
I'm absolutely fine. I really am loving this. So carry on.
So tell you what, if you don't mind, I'm gonna like actually just do the whole thing. We 3/4, we're there. Ray?
Yeah, I'm keen. I have other questions, but I'll read your blog and then I'll get hold of you.
Okay.
So yeah, go for it.
Ray? Is it okay to go on another 15 minutes?
Hold on, 2 moments.
Say what? Okay, awesome. Because I'm enjoying it this evening. It seems a lot more relaxed than last week. I think I was in a bit of a bad space. I'm sorry, but I found myself. I'm good. So let's get on with it. Thanks for the heads up, Reed. Dom, so that's when we reach muscle fatigue. That's when we start burning fat cells. And I often feel like when we've hit those super active periods, we often feel like the effects of detoxing. And I believe that's, again, because we've now released these toxins and the liver, the liver is being pressurized to work a little harder in that instance, because there will be high levels of toxins that it now has to deal with. So I think that's often, you know, on top of the stiffness, that's often the difficulty we get going with exercise, when we feel so awful that first week or two. And you only have to deal with that for the first week or two, and then it actually gets easier and more manageable. So here are a little tip or two to deal with that. Things like MSM, I can't remember the whole methyl sulfur something. MSM is a powder. It's quite unpleasant tasting. It's a sulfur-based product, but combine that with vitamin C. Beautiful. Also, you need to start it off in smaller amounts and build it up. Beautifully combined with vitamin C to help alleviate. And if you want to even bang that up further, bang in some magnesium powder. That stacking will really take the edge off your discomfort, your muscular discomfort, and also support maybe the detox function a little bit. So it will make the beginning part of your journey in functional movement and exercise a lot more bearable. Another thing to do is Epsom salts bath, which is your magnesium. And again, remember, it's transdermally infused. So you can have a bath. I recommend about 500 milligrams in order for it to have really good effect. If you have some essential oils, you can bang those in to heighten the effect on the muscles, and stay in, and add it to a bath as hot as you can stand, because remember, hot water will do two things. It's going to dilate the vessels, so you will be able to transdermally infuse more into your system. Also be careful, because sometimes I find that a little bit dizzy and faint afterwards. So really try and do it when you've got time to relax, and you know, it's kind of spa day or spa evening or whatever. And then the other thing that's really lovely for muscle restoration is beetroot juice. Yeah, have juice some beetroot juice, eat some beetroots. That's also beautifully replenishing and restorative, particularly for muscle, you know, endurance sports, things like that, that really, particularly muscle fatigue. Beetroot juice, beautiful for that. Let's quickly talk about what fuels we need for movement. We need proteins, primarily in the form of amino acids. We hear that, you know, all about essential and non-essential amino acids. I think I've put some in the blog, but I've also got other blogs about it. If you need more info, we can talk about it. And then I've mentioned the fats and how they're stored. And last week I mentioned how much I value fats as a source of fuel in the body over carbohydrates. And again, we want to use that over proteins because we want to allow proteins to focus on repairing the body and not be used as a fuel necessarily. Where are we? Okay, muscle recovery. You know, other things to remember is, yes, we can eat for it, we can supplement for it, but there are other things we can consider doing with regards to movement and the support of movement. Massage, very good. I love reflexology because I believe one of the things I wanted to talk about is kinetic chains. So the hip bone is connected to the thigh bone. And my experience in massage and functional movement and reflexology is that often our aches and disorders with regards to knees and hips and lower backs and ankles actually often all come from the foot. How are we using the foot as a foundation in our movement? So having reflexology on the foot can actually make a difference to how you move functionally and how well you perform in a movement and even your posture. And remember, muscle structure is very important for posture. So another thing I just want to point out, we hear a lot about having a six-pack. I want to tell you what's more important. So your six-pack are your exterior rectus abdominis. So the six-pack, remember, are these muscles over here. Well, right down here, let me do this. Right down here at the pelvis, around where your bladder would be, and for women where your uterus would be, there are very deep muscles called the transverse abdominis. They are your internal corset. So really what you ought to be doing for best posture and also for injury prevention is to develop those deep core muscles. So I kind of recommend most people should do a form of exercise such as Pilates, because those really help you focus and build on your supporting muscles. For example, your pelvic hip stabilization. Ray, quick question. Are you doing any online Pilates classes?
Yes, I do. Pretty much, well, yeah, through the week. So I've got yoga on the Wednesday and the Thursday, and then I have yoga Pilates, and then Pilates I do a rehab class on a Monday at 8:30, which is awesome. And then I do Pilates on a Wednesday and a Friday. Yeah.
Okay, and where, if people want to join in, how do they do that?
Well, they can just, if they WhatsApp me, then I can just put them onto the group, and then it's a Zoom class.
Okay, so I'm talking to Ray Dengler. She's the magic lady at Dynamics Fitness. And like you hear, she's got classes to offer, and they are online. So please, if you're looking to do anything, look her up and use her services. So yeah, please, Pilates, beautiful exercise to do as one of your foundational core movement. You know, if you've got a regime. That's the other thing about the body. I said use it or lose it. Other than range of motion I mentioned, you also need to use your body on every plane. Meaning we often move forward we move backwards sometimes. Occasionally we move side to side. What we don't do a lot of, and this is fun, I have to show you this because it just occurred to me, but what we don't tend to do a lot of is this. So a cross body movement, we do very little of that, and that's actually really important. So you have muscles like here on the side, just under your ribs, called obliques, and those are also part of your important foundational core muscles because they keep, they're part of like the corset. So cross body movement, so moving your body on all planes is really important, as is range of motion, which I mentioned earlier. And again, range of motion is being able to move every joint in its full range of motion. It's important to do that often. Again, it's the use it or lose it principle of the body. I also mentioned the kinetic chain and what goes on. So I think there's more in the blog. I don't know if anyone has any questions up until this point. Cool. You know, the other thing I wanted to quickly talk about are the benefits of movement. Primarily lymph. So remember last week did we talk about it? Lymph is a one-way valve system, essentially. It doesn't have a heart to pump the lymph around the body. So it requires the contraction of muscle to help pump or act as the pump for the lymph system. So movement is really important, and muscular contraction, really important to get lymph flowing, and certainly to keep it stagnant. One of the best forms of exercise, I believe, to support your lymph system is any form of jumping. If you've got sore knees or hips, you can use something like a trampoline or a mini trampoline, a rebounder. Otherwise, if you have a skipping rope, that's awesome. Also very good for the circulatory system, which I'll mention just now again. Sorry, there is another point. Another way of doing, if you don't have any equipment, star jumps will do. So that's how simple it is. Doing some jumping every day, try and build up, start with a minute, 2 minutes, build up to at least 10 minutes a day, and you'll be amazed at how well you'll kind of feel rejuvenated, because you really get the lymph system flowing. And for those who are having lymph issues, I'm happy to take you through. There's certain lymph drainage protocols you can follow for yourself that I'm happy to talk you through. Particularly, you know, any swelling around, you know, sinus issues, I can talk you through how to deal with that using lymph drainage. In fact, it's so much fun to show you because we participate together. So the other advantage I talked about, that's when we talked about lymph, was in breathing, because we talked about how they sit down here. Remember, as the diaphragm moves down, it's rubbing various collection of lymph glands that are sitting behind the breastbone, together with the fact that you've got lymph, like veins coming up from the lower part of the body, and the diaphragm helps squeeze the lymph up so that it can be actually dealt with. Then the other thing that exercise does, or when we move our bodies, as too does it squeeze the lymph vessels, so too does it squeeze the lymph nodes. So exercise, moving, getting muscular contraction really supports lymph system. It also supports the circulatory system, because again, like the lymph, the valves of the veins of the circulatory system have a one-way valve system, meaning it also requires the pumping action of muscles to create, to give it that backflow up. And that's often why you have varicose veins in your leg, because you know, other than the vein has lost its tensegrity, its resistance, it became baggy. So too, probably the muscles around it weren't offering the right support, you know, pumping action. And that can happen if we're injured. You know, think about it. If you get a thorn in your right heel, you're going to walk in a way that avoids that pressure, which means for a period of time, over a lifetime or a number of years, yes, the thorn is not always there, but how many times have you got blisters on your Achilles heel from wearing too tight or new shoes, or you stood in a piece of glass or a thorn, or you pulled something, or you're planted, whatever. There are any number of reasons that make us walk on our feet differently. And like I said in the kinetic chain, how you use your feet as a foundation will impact the muscles and the bone, the structure above it. So when we don't walk properly, we're going to influence the muscles in the calves. So that's perhaps sometimes also pregnancy, the hormones will influence. But for example, we can at least promote better vascular care through exercise, through how we move and our activities. Also, the other thing about exercise is that it increases your oxygen capacity of the body, because you are just generally getting weller. The muscles are getting bigger, so they are asking for more. The veins are getting stronger. You just generally, because you're getting more oxygen in. So exercise is a beautiful way to get more oxygen in your body in a healthy way. But then remember, it can be damaging, so we need to take that into account and then restore the body in the right way. So another beautiful benefit of moving activity, where you really get the heart rate up and things are stimulated, is really one of the best benefits. Is, like I said, take magnesium at night to bring your cortisol levels down. Exercise actually helps the muscles burn up cortisol. So exercise will help you burn up the stress hormones and any of those compounds that are causing us inflammation. Exercise will actually get rid of some of that buildup to make it more manageable. And then you add the magnesium and you sort it, maybe, hopefully. Also remember, I talked last week about body clock. So your circadian rhythm, essentially. You know, one thing, I'm going to move, I've kind of moved out of the physical. I've kind of played around and dumped in the spirit and the mental here and there. But let's just quickly focus on a mental aspect. And that is that, you know, anything, eating right, breathing correctly, moving, we don't have to do it correctly, but we can apply our minds. You know, we could just live unconsciously and the body will go. However, when we apply our minds and we rise above the lower brain, we can actually be quite clever in making exercise or activity fun, and actually feel more motivated and eventually build up a self-discipline. So, for example, one of the ways we can hack getting over ourselves is look at your circadian rhythms. You know, your body feels more awake, for example, in the morning, because that's when cortisol, that's what kind of wakes you up. As your body senses that there's light, your cortisol levels start to rise. So that's when you start being stimulated, which is why you need to calm that, why that needs to be less at night so you can actually calm down and go to sleep. So if you think how you feel during the course of the day, you really ought to focus on being most active when you are at your most physically functional. You will find some points in the day you will be more mentally functional. It's easier to sit down and have meetings or write a document. Other times of day, you feel more restless. You feel like you want to get up and move around. Work with your body. We all have a different, but when you get it right, you'll find a way where it's actually you start to want to do it. And then it's not even, it's only a self-discipline in the beginning when you're feeling like you need to get over yourself and you don't really want to. You do, but you don't. You know that noise. So yeah, work with your body as far as the circadian rhythm goes. And if cortisol is high, again, like if your cortisol levels are too high in the evening and you're struggling to fall asleep and stay asleep and get a good night's sleep, then perhaps doing your exercise later in the day will help start to burn off those excess cortisol levels, and you will then be able to actually get a good night's sleep and rest and restoration is really important, and we're going to address that next week in the final part of this part of our series. There is more to come. I've got another 2 lined up, and I'll give people the opportunity. Linda, we're going to do your one. Your suggestion is part of the next 2. But if anyone has any ideas of what they would like to hear about, please inbox me. Also, the other thing I'd like to know, I know that this is a challenging time. There is no ever perfect time for people to meet, to get everybody in one place at one time. But if you can think of a better day or time that you think that this would work for a wider audience, then please let me know. I would love to hear your suggestions and try and fit in with you, the audience. You know, I don't need to dictate to you. I am able to fit in where possible. So yes, that's starting to apply the mind. So then let's quickly look at, and I kind of in that started to talk about the spiritual, which is, you know, the spiritual aspect is your awareness, your consciousness. That's where you start to say, well, you know what, I'm worthy. I'm whole, I'm complete. It's about self-discipline. It's about I'm valuable. What do I need to do to keep myself prime? It's yeah, really starting to have some self-respect. And self-discipline really is that. It's self-worth, it's self-value, and it's self-respect, self-honor. And if you're having issues with those things, again, I'm a body, mind, and spirit wellness service. There are many tools that I can give you to work with that I think could be valuable towards helping you overcome some of these limitations and perceptions, self-imposed perceptions that you might have. Let me help you move out of fear-based patterning and into something a little more effective, and help you become the master of your life and the captain of your human spaceship. The other thing to remember always about the spiritual aspect is we look at more than just ourselves. We look at the greater whole. And so I find one of the reasons I do what I do is because if I can get you to give a fuck about yourself, you will start to care about the things I care about. And one of those things is the environment. So I find when people start to do exercise, perhaps they take up running, you'll find that they'll go running on the beach or on the road. And you start to become aware of your environment when you become more active and engaged in being physically fit and well, because you start to realize the value of being able to breathe in fresh air, fresh oxygen as you're doing whatever activity, because nobody likes to do it in a stuffy room where you feel like you can't breathe. And you also want to be surrounded by, you want to be able to exercise in a pleasant environment. Think about how many gyms consider how they make the environment look. You want it to be comfortable, clean, and enjoyable experience. So often, if you want to avoid a gym, we go into nature, and when we're in nature, we start to notice the litter, we start to notice the dog poop, and so on and so forth. So yes, pay attention to your environment while you're exercising, and let's look after it so that we can do activities in more pleasurable environments. And then the last thing I'm going to mention is if you are having issues in life, if you're finding you feeling depressed, isolated, I know we were forced to recently with a worldwide event, and in most places it's eased up. But, you know, I've moved quite a lot. I've lived in a few different countries, and so I've had to learn adjustment and coping techniques to massive change. And one of the things I noticed about going to a new place and wanting to integrate there is that it was really helpful and useful to participate in group activities. So group classes. So I went to Pilates classes and yoga classes, and I joined a book club or whatever. You know, it's important to, and again, join an activity class, because we often lack self-motivation. So when we join an activity class, there are numerous benefits. One, you are driven to by the collective because you want to participate in social. We're social creatures. But also it's a beautiful way to meet people in your community who are interested in the same things as you, because otherwise you both wouldn't be there. So it really increases your chances of meeting people and making friends. So there's really no need to be lonely in this world. You can look after yourself and make friends at the same time. And I think I pretty much, well, yeah, I'll end off by saying there's a quote by Jim Rohn, and he says, take care of your body. It's the only place you have to live. And I think from me this evening, that's all I have to say. Thank you for your great patience in this very long talk. I just wanted to give anyone a chance quickly to ask any questions. Linda, you would be my first guest.
You know me by
I
now.
do. I love that you ask questions.
Bites my tongue here. So I was going to get hold of you after, but talking about lymph drainage, for example, I deal with a lot of oldies.
Yes.
So star jumps and the like are out. But Qigong is something I find is very gentle.
I'm sorry, I lost you there for a bit.
Okay. With me dealing with a lot of oldies, star jumps are out. So
yeah, knees, hips, yeah.
Of Qigong. And what he always does to start off with, you bounce on your knees.
Yes.
And that is really awesome. Just thought I'd mention that.
Lovely. You know what else, Linda, actually in that instance too, is, you know, if one has those big exercise balls.
Yes, yes, I know them.
Yeah, you get rings that you can put them in too, so that, you know, if it's actually, if for those elderly that are you can build up their functionality as they get fitter and stronger slowly. But initially, if they're struggling with balance, you put one of those balls in the ring to keep it secure, and then allow them to sit on it. And so that will start to help them with their balance and the proprioception that they've been losing. And if they just gently bounce in it, so their feet are flat on the ground, they're sitting, and they gently bounce, that's also very safe. Like there's no impact on the joints from that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then also I can show you to privately talk you through.
Oh, must have got an internet lost them.
Yeah, I think she's gone now. Oh no. Yeah, she's gone. Okay. I suppose, I don't know how she's going to, how do we close this meeting?
No, I can close it.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's great. I'm sort of left hanging. I'm thinking, what do I do now? Okay, awesome. Thanks so much. I haven't met you, but nice to hear from you.
All right, Linda. You too.
Okay,
Bye.
take care. Have a good evening. Bye. Oh, you're back.
Yeah, sorry guys, I got kicked off, which is actually a sign that perhaps it's time to call this quits. If there's any, if anyone has questions, feel like get hold of me, Linda. I'm always happy to chat. And like I said, I'll talk you through some lymph drainage moves that you can show your people to do on themselves.
Oh, that's awesome. I just think you're a mine of information, and I enjoyed this, and really, really grateful that you're giving us your valuable time. I mean that from my heart to yours.
No, thanks, Linda.
And we'll speak soon.
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate your time, your attention, your patience, and I value your feedback. And it's really a beautiful experience to be able to be sharing what I know about what I love. So thank you. And Ray, I really appreciate you allowing us to use this forum. And I hope we can get some people doing some yoga and Pilates. Whoop, whoop. I'll catch up with everyone either privately or next week's meeting is same time, same place, part 4 of the Compass to Wellness. And that will be on rest and restoration. So have a beautiful week. Thank you.
Go
Thanks,
well. Bye.
Bye.
I'll send you the recording.